Reporting from the recesses of the mind's eye, this is the Coroner's Report, your news roundup for the month that was, May 2021 in entertainment. Zero tolerance for drinking on the job has been rescinded for this special six-pack bulletin, focusing on the world of showbiz. We've been treated to a plethora of debut trailers, so an embarrassment of riches is inbound. We now go live to our Situation Room for our incoming transmission.
Once again, this is rumor control. Here are the facts. Time to play the game.
I remember watching Age of Ultron, the middle child of the Avengers movies, and recall the imagery of Thor's nightmare for Asgard, a reckoning of things to come, as mythology turned monstrosity. If you match this with the deleted scene where the lightning deity was possessed by a witch of his realm, after having fallen under the spell of the Scarlet Witch, my mind staggered at the thought of combining horror with Norse mythology. These mere moments of footage were far more interesting than the Thor Ragnarok depiction we ended up getting.
By Odin's beard, you shall not cut my hair, lest you feel the wrath of the mighty Thor. Please, kind sir, do not cut my hair. No! No!
You are now meeting the Grand Master.
That's what.
How this movie made $1 billion, but hark, all hope is not lost. Enter Apsulov. The premise? Touted as a future Viking horror, the game sees mortal man at the height of his scientific advancement stumble across Yggdrasil, the redwood that connects to all the 9 realms, including Earth. This world tree's stems have grown rotten over the millennia and have begun to take root in other realms to spread the evil that has been awoken by human discovery. The same thing happens when you leave your black bean burger in the fridge too long. They tell you it lacks the trans fats of beef and swear you can't taste the difference, but I don't think that dead cow meat has the flavor of a Viking apocalypse. It's such a simple premise that my cold, dead heart is all aflutter that it's soon to arrive on consoles with a summer 2021 release. Speaking of, I for one am stoked about Chernobylite. Between this and the upcoming Stalker 2 trailer that announced at last year's E3, it looks like we'll be getting a solid pairing of Atomic Age gameplay. I've always much preferred mutants as a monster as opposed to the Yawn of the Dead from other franchises, but let's be serious, Resident Evil ain't about zombies anymore now, is it? I mean, the studio's brain dead, but the Metro series proved that the little franchise that could, trudging along through the late 7th and 8th gen console cycles, so I'm intrigued to see what this different take on nuclear-radiated environments is like. The RPG will pit the player against military personnel, natural threats, and supernatural savages from another dimension. Given that last piece, I'd hazard a guess that the Pripyat Zone of Exclusion, or what you call Twitch, tore a hole in our reality and rang the dinner bell for creatures from another. Think of it as the 2019 Chernobyl miniseries meets Stephen King's The Mist. With a July 2021 release date, be on the lookout. Chernobylite and the previously mentioned Apsulov will be coming to a Mind Games Scream stream near you. While we're on the subject of Capcom, we have breaking news that Frankenstein Army's director claims Resident Evil Village monsters are based off of his designs. Now then, disclaimer. In preparation for my own stream of this game on my sister Facebook page, I tried to keep away from as many spoilers regarding Resident Evil sewage as possible. As of this video, the only plot-related details I've heard are something about a fetus and a factory. One singular look at the enemy types on this level, and even I knew that this game had shamelessly ripped off that movie's monsters. But to me, that ain't even the story here. No, There is no question that copyright has been infringed on. And not the YouTube algorithm types for using 15 seconds of music. I'm talking the real kind. Yes, Capcom absolutely stole these ideas from a crappy zombie movie. As far as I'm concerned, the real story is nobody noticed? It took the director speaking out and providing side-by-side comparisons in order for news to break. All these sites, all these reviewers and YouTubers didn't notice this? Look, if you, Mr. Joe Normie, are watching this video, I can understand if you've never heard of Frankenstein's Army. Trust me, you don't want to, you ain't missing much, you're welcome. I just saved you an hour and a half, you can thank me by watching my Mortal Kombat vs. Street Fighter movie breakdown, it's half the runtime and thrice the entertainment value, you're welcome twice. But not only is this bargain basement zombie movie less than a decade old, but many of these same sites that are expressing shock, horror, that a money-grubbing studio would tarnish a beloved franchise with a mainline sequel that commits a forgery of an indie film's ideas are also the same sources that reviewed the film in question. Hey, Bloody Disgusting, didn't you provide coverage on this movie's version of Call of Duty Zombies? Hey, IGN, didn't you serve as the platform for everything from Red Band trailers all the way to a movie review on the film Zombie of the Third Reich? I guess it's too much to ask for these glorified shill sites to depress their tongues from filleting Resident Evil 8 as a prodigy of the franchise long enough to do their damn job and report them some damn news. You're honestly telling me that this game brazenly parroted multiple monsters from an 8-year-old flick that you blundering simpletons reviewed and nary a website, podcaster, or YouTube noticed?
Brilliant! Brilliant!
Top-notch journalism. Hard to see how this game lights the way for the future like an innovator when it has to resort to copying off of someone else's homework. Might want to retract that. But that's okay, it just legitimizes my channel's existence and that of every other indie media. The Mind's Eye's got you covered. Seriously, folks, get your news from independent sources. Seriously, folks, watch the MK vs. Street Fighter video. I was going to cover the slew of upcoming film trailers, but I gotta be honest with you guys, not even my quick wit and flair for comedy can bring any levity to the sad state of these releases. Everything's a sequel, everything's a part 12, or a reboot, and of all things, for franchises that are either on their last legs or well past their expiration date. Ain't that right, Saw series? Yeah, apologists, you go right ahead and blame the pinko pox, just as long as you leave the truth-telling to me. The fact of the matter is, folks, is that this is the third attempt in under a decade to re-release this film to humiliating degrees. Read 'em and tweet, kiddies. Much like Blair Witch's downward spiral, when a decades-spanning franchise is relegated to a one-hit wonder, I find it a fair question to ask, was the original even as good as you think it was? Maybe they should have saw fit to end it at part 2. On to my point of this section. As the years fall off the calendar, if there's one thing that's become glaringly obvious, it's that I have more of an affinity for horror classics of old landing on Blu-ray than the present-day duds releasing in theaters. With that in mind, something in movie news dropped recently that has my arousal set to morning wood, and that's the release of In Search of Darkness Numero Tres. For the uninformed, this was a documentary that released in 2019 that reviewed the majesty that was the 80s decade of my favorite genre and yours. This 4-hour in-depth look was so nice they did it twice, and now they're going for round 3. I'll be covering both of these lengthy documentaries one of these decades, and I'll leave a link in the description for the tweet because the creators actually inquired the fan base what topics we wish to see covered. Considering they tackled the 80s films for 8.5 hours in parts 1 and 2, I think it's fair to say that ground has been as well trodden as the 80s decade has been well trampled. May I propose the radical paradigm shift, thusly, into an exploration into the beginnings of survival horror starting in the 80s, thisly. I've long sat befuddled at the separation between horror gaming and film, and for someone who's a sucker for horror documentaries, I've sat with about as much disinterest in the umpteenth look at slashers as mainstream audiences are at the Oscars. The In Search of Darkness brand has the opportunity to correct a 40-year negligence and host the first official gaming documentary to detail the first steps of how fear fiction into Sweet Homes came before interactive horror entered Residents of Evil. Hey, did I mention franchises on their last legs and video games? So, that Castlevania show's final season came and went without anyone noticing or caring. Shouldn't this series have felt like a bigger deal? Just to give you an idea, they released 4 seasons of Castlevania in less time than we got 4 seasons of Stranger Things, Netflix's actual viewership draw. I've often heard it said that video games are better suited to the long-form storytelling of TV than they are movies. And while I don't disagree, for this series, I think better storytelling was needed. Between the ever-present male-bashing of identity politics that has plagued everything from Star Wars to sports, to the mantra that religion is bad, but only when it's Catholic, maybe a bit less checkboxes and more characters, less progressivism, more plot. I watched the first 3 seasons and I can barely tell you what happened. It's that forgettable. Good riddance, and do better. I've saved our top story for last. We're getting word now that there's judgment in progress. Ladies and gentlemen, he's back. Folks, I'm about as happy a camper as a schoolgirl backpacking with weapons of murderous intent to see a 9th season of Dexter. Unquestionably, my favorite show of all time. Now, I already mentioned covering the 2 horror documentaries. You best believe I'll be covering all 8 seasons of America's Favorite Serial Killer. More than just my favorite show coming back after 8 years to correct the pitfalls of its 8th season to give the show the send-off it deserves, this is yet another example of studios recognizing the mistakes of the past to give the fans programming they want to enjoy. You know what I mean. I'm talking the Mandalorian show in the face of the Star Wars debacle. I'm referring to Paramount's decision to adjust the look of Sonic after fan outrage. I'm saying the embrace of the Snyder Cut post-Justice League. Dexter Season 9 is just another building block to bridge the gap between franchise and followers, and I'm glad to finally see a time where fans are finally being acknowledged and embraced. I'll never defend giving in to a mob. I'm just saying, send your fans home happy, and this fall, the Dark Passengers got a place to call home. I, for one, will definitely be reserving time on my schedule in autumn for a little time to kill.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.